everything into scenario-based training. So they'll use all the tools that they've acquired through the course, how to fight with a rifle, how to fight with a pistol, how to fight with a knife, all the importance of dominant body position put into scenario training.
They get in a predicament in training and they see that they can get out of it. They're taught how to get out of the hold or the move that someone has, or how to get up and create space so that they could, again, control a situation.
All right, sir, get your hands up. Hands up.
And from that, I said, wow, I'm not afraid now.
Get out of the vehicle, sir. Get out of the vehicle.
It makes a big difference when you go in there and you can physically grab someone and handle them and bend them to your will.
Your other hand, sir.
Without hurting them. So like I said, I mean, people see that. And they see that, you know, you're forcing your will upon them, but that you're not abusing them.
Our soldiers go out and have life and death fights routinely. It's got to be real, because if it's not, we're going to hear about it immediately. Somebody's going to get killed.
The Marine Corps has its own combatives training. The Marine Corps Martial Arts Program, or MCMAP, traces its roots back to the trench fighting of World War I. It's come a long way.
MCMAP is a whole Marine program. It's not singularly focused on the fighting aspects of martial arts. Rather, the focus is on emphasizing the complete development of Marine warrior.
From day one, when the Marines come in, they essentially start from the basics, going over the tan belt, gray belt fundamentals. Essentially, from there, we're going to teaching them different techniques.
Like this.
Come here. This is week 2 of a 3-week course.
Showed up at 06:30 this morning, which today consists of doing the obstacle course, 3 rounds in less than 30 minutes.
The little competition, losing squad ends up with the log. Because everybody knows a competition, people usually work a little bit harder. Next go around, and everybody's fighting and pushing harder, not because they don't want the log.
Physical discipline is the training and the honing of our martial skills, our combative skills, along with the combat conditioning that's essential to apply this warrior trade.
Pretty intense right when you start off, and then more involvement with this week is actually body sparring.
We're going to teaching them different techniques.
Shoulder throw, hip throw, counter to the knife. Just different techniques you can use downrange that you don't get day-to-day basic training.
Through the Marine Corps Martial Arts program, we're seeing Marines that are physically and mentally fit, they're physically and mentally tough, they're able to handle the challenges of today's modern battlefield, and they're doing it in superb fashion.
This whole course is pretty demanding, but as long as you got the mindset that you're going to complete it and do what is asked of you, you should get through it. It's pretty painful, but pain is just weakness leaving the body.
You've seen how the Army Marine Corps trains. Coming up, we'll look at the Air Force program. Plus,
See how soldiers are finishing the fight inside the ring.
We'll have all the bantamweight action from the Army Combatives Championship. I'm Van Stokes, here with Matt Larson, Director of the Army Combatives Program. Matt, you were ringside at the annual Army Combatives Championship. Tell us about this 3-day, 3-tiered competition.
Well, Van, day one was the preliminary rounds, which was basically grappling. It's kind of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu mixed with folk-style wrestling rules. Day two was the intermediate rounds, which allows limited striking, open hand to the head, closed fist to the body. They can kick to the head, but there are no knee strikes. And now is the advanced rules, and this is closed fist to the head, you can kick to the head, and you can knee to the body. So pretty much everything goes.
True combatives. Matt, thanks for setting the stage. Let's meet our bantamweight fighters going for the bronze medal. Matt Urey and Robert Texador competed for the bronze medal in this consolation match. Let's hear their strategies going into the bantamweight fight.
I'll be just making changes as the fight goes on, just changing my game plan, wherever it needs to take place.
Recently, I've become more of a stand-up fighter because of my training partners. We feel that's our strongest asset in Third Corps. We put in more MMA rounds than anybody else, but I have wrestled and I have strong jiu-jitsu as well.
I know both stand-up and ground games, so either way where it takes me, I'm not going to be a stranger to it.
I don't feel that I'm going to feel anybody out. I want to go in there and impose my will on his will and end it as fast as I can.
So, Matt, a couple of different strategies. Yuri, a bit of a plotter. He wants to feel things out. Texador, he's going to take it to his opponent.
And I think you'll probably see that they both have well-rounded skills. And despite what they say, they'll come out and start feeling each other out at first.
Well, let's find out. Let's go to the action. And there's the bell. The squared ring, if you will, Matt. The venue, Fort Benning, Georgia. Smith Gymnasium.
Smith Gymnasium is named after Paul R. Smith, who was a Medal of Honor winner early in the war.
Now again, Texador landing a couple of jabs, boxing technique. Texador with the blue belt on, and Yuri with the red belt. They search each other out a little bit like two boxers.
Well, boxing is pretty much the basis of all hand-to-hand combat, or all striking skills.
Well, there's a good strike right there by Texador.
That's right. And I think Texador has a little bit better, a little more crisp strikes than Yuri does at this point.
And Texador tries to land a 1-2. And right off the bat, it really does resemble a bit of a boxing match.
In the early days of the program, I used to send all the instructors out to the local boxing gym and make them fight out there until they had their first or second amateur fight or victory before they could even work at the school. So it's an important thing for everyone to know.
A little bit of close-in fighting right there as they separate, come back to a neutral position, if you will.
Of course, you'll see the difference here is that they have to be able to transition smoothly between the ranges. Boxing isn't enough. It's boxing and rolls right into grappling and wrestling and takedowns.
A little bit of ringmanship. You need to know where you are in the bout. You also need to know where you are in the ring. Oh, there's a quick. And a quick takedown with the head and arm. Yuri in the top position right now. Texador in the bottom. And you see a little bit of blood right now on the face of Yuri. But you know what? They just ignore that, don't they?
They do. It looks like Texador is defending well. He's got a good guard here. He's using his legs to avoid punches. He's holding them tight so that he can't get room to strike.
Yuri in the top position. Texador fighting for what he's worth.
Working for an armbar here. Looks like he almost has it.
What's the referee looking for? Oh, and there's a good look right now on the face of Matt Yuri.
He's switching over to the omoplata. You can see that's an arm lock where he's using his hips to work that arm up behind his back.
And that's the omoplata.
Roger.
Big snapback, pull back on the head, if you will, by Texador.
And not only, look, he's got a choke going there. It looks like a choke.
Choke hold, and that's a tap out.
That's it.
That is a tap out by Matt Yuri. He feels he's in a defenseless position. He has no alternative but to simply tap out and tapping the shoulder of his opponent.
It was a very interesting technique. He had both the arm lock and the choke going. I think the choke is what got him. At the end, you need blood going to your head to stay awake.
Let's give a listen to the announcement. There it is. The hand raised.
The winner by a choke in the blue corner, representing Third Corps, Robert Texador.
So Robert Texador, representing 3 Corps and Fort Hood, Texas, wins the bronze medal in this bantamweight division. It's a pretty good representation for 3 Corps.
3 Corps and Fort Riley are in contention for the championship this year, so this was a very key fight for both teams.
So Texador, very much the aggressor. Coming up later on in the show, we'll be back with the action from the gold medal fight in the bantamweight class. Stick around. There's more on Close Combat.
Welcome back to Close Combat. Just as each service has a different mission, each branch has a different approach to hand-to-hand combat. The Air Force has adopted its own program based on modified Army combatives training.
All right, first thing we're gonna do is go over the fight stance this morning. Down, bring it through, you're right here. Shield up. Everybody say shield up. Shield up.
Everything that we teach is on the ground. It gives them the sense that if they find themselves in a hostile situation, what is easy to learn, and can I defend myself if I find myself in that situation?
Airmen are on the ground outside the fence in today's joint expeditionary Air Force doing things and finding themselves in positions that they may not have found themselves in a couple decades ago, or even a few years ago. So this is tremendously important to be able to at least have a basis from which to know how to defend themselves.
All right, reset. Position before submission.
A lot more intense than I expected it to be. I thought from what I'm used to, my past experiences told me that when we came out here on day one, it would be kind of by the numbers. They taught us what we needed to know, and then we got to apply it.
His legs are always up.
You say leg like a belt, foot like a hook. Say it.
Leg like a belt, foot like a hook.
You fall back holding your elbow, you're not going to break an arm by accident. In this class, we only break arms on purpose.
Definitely demanding. It's a little bit tougher than a regular PT regimen because it's a full body workout. You're constantly on the go, you learn new things, you try new things. Technique is very big, so you're trying to learn technique but also master the moves at the same time.
All right, you see how he's able to pull you in like that? Yes, sir. When we say good bar punch.
Yes, sir.
That way when he tries to pull you, you're right there.
When we deploy, we're prepared with a skill set that if in the event we have to engage the enemy at close quarters battle, that if our weapon jams or if they close the distance where we can't use our primary weapon, that we also have another tool to defeat the enemy.
And he's going to scissor his legs, just like a pair of scissors. And now he's on top in the mount.
Okay, basic mount position, just like in a third grade fight, right? On the playground. You get on top of the opponent. Anybody seen A Christmas Story? And Ralphie gets on top and he just starts beating away. Think of that.
We still are in the early stages of the program. Right now, the officers at OTS, the Air Force Academy, and here at ASPC at Maxwell get the training. Eventually, we hope to move to BMT. It got started here at Maxwell in January of '08, and it's kind of progressed since then. But we really look to bring it to basic military training one day and to be out there training with the enlisted corps as well.
The other arm going underneath the armpit with an opposing thumb's grip. Everybody say opposing thumb's grip.
Opposing thumb's grip.
The interest in this combatives program is phenomenal. It's to the point, we're getting calls here at the Academy daily from young airmen, young officers all across the Air Force trying to lean forward and do more and more and more out of their units. So it's tremendously popular.
It's a great experience. I think every airman should know how to use hand-to-hand combat in case of the fact that they're called upon to go down range and need to have this tool set in their kit bag.
Right now, the Navy does not have an organized combatives program, but sailors often train with Marines at Camp Geiger, North Carolina, using McMap techniques. Up next, a look back at the history and evolution of modern Army combatives. Plus, the gold medal fight in the bantamweight class coming up on Close Combat. Modern Army combatives has changed dramatically from its early days in World War II. Instructors are constantly getting feedback from downrange on what works, what doesn't, and what techniques to add. Here's a look back at the program's history and evolution.
At least since World War I, when we've had the average soldier actually learning anything from the program. Well, the combatives program began really Back in 1995, the commander of the 2nd Ranger Battalion, which was General Stan McChrystal, when he was Lieutenant Colonel, he said, hey, I want to have hand-to-hand combat training in the unit. So we did what anybody else would have done. We busted out the manual and started doing what the Army doctrine said to do, and it was a big waste of time. So we went back to him and said, hey, sir, you know, this is kind of a waste of time. And he said, well, obviously it's not hand-to-hand combat training that's a waste of time, so it must be the method that we're using to do it. So he tasked us to figure out a better way. We started looking around to various sources of, you know, martial arts training and what other units and what other armies in the world had done. You know, strangely enough, most armies in the world don't even train, much less have effective hand-to-hand combat training. And those that do, they generally have some sort of cultural reason why it would be effective. When you teach people how to really fight and they know it's real. And so I knew all along a couple things. Number one, I knew that this was useful stuff that soldiers needed to know. But number two, I knew that it would spread throughout the Army. I was a traditional martial artist for a long time, so I trained my guys back in the 80s and whatnot in the martial arts I was doing, karate and judo and whatnot. And I made the same mistakes that most every martial arts teacher in the military does. I taught those martial arts and the training methodologies and pedagogies from them to my soldiers. And I was entirely unsuccessful because those training methodologies and pedagogies, they don't fit the culture of the Army. They don't fit the reality of how much time you have to dedicate to it, who's motivated to do it, etc. When I started doing this method, it worked immediately. The boys really learned how to fight, and they knew it, and they were fired up about it. And then it started spreading, you know, from that squad to that platoon, to the company, to the battalion, to the brigade, and it was obvious. Show somebody something that's real, they know it's real, they get fired up about it. And learning how to fight, it's life-changing.
Stick around. Up next, all the ringside action from the bantamweight gold medal match in the Army Championship Combatives Tournament.
I'm Van Stokes, back with Matt Larson. Now for the final fight in the bantamweight class. Let's meet our competitors. David Mason and Sean Stebbins fought for the gold in the championship. Let's hear what they had to say leading up to the fight.
The first fight I ended up taking, it was a female, I ended up taking her down and I submitted her with a headlock submission.
Well, he's a pretty good wrestler from what I've heard, and I'm a wrestler. I'm gonna try and stand up with him for a little bit, see how he does on his feet. Play the points game a little bit. And if it goes to the ground, I'm confident on the ground too.
I'm a wrestler, so I guess, you know, I'll be wrestling. But stand up, try to get some shots in up on him and we put him into the corner and try to ground and pound him a little bit.
So Matt, you heard the strategy, a couple of wrestlers. Who has the best strategy?
Well, I think what we'll end up seeing is they'll come up and tie up right away. There's very little tendency in the guys with a lot of wrestling background to bang it out. Now, it could be a surprise. I guess we'll look at it.
Yeah, well, let's take a look. Let's get to the action. Ready to start this bantamweight gold medal match. Sean Stebbins has the blue belt, comes right out on the attack with the red belt, David Mason. And very quickly, Matt, they tie up, actually find themselves in a corner.
Yeah, I thought this would happen, and that's one of the differences in this sort of fighting from what they're used to in wrestling, is that there really isn't an out of bounds.
It may not be out of bounds, but there is a bit of a danger involved when they move over under the ropes of perhaps falling out of the ring.
And the rule is that the out of bounds shouldn't change the outcome of the fight. So you can see the referee now stopping them to start them back in the same position. He was basically waiting for a chance so that he would know exactly where to put their arms, legs, etc.
So David Mason is in the top position as he was on the edge of the ring, comes back to the center of the mat to restart this bout. And it's really difficult to get good striking in when you're tied up on the mat as they are.
You can see this is what, once again, his wrestling background. Wrestling is a game of position as well. He's in a good position, but to be able to cause damage is something that he's not used to. So he's got to get a good room or some space in order to drop blows on him.
Well, he's got a good lock on the upper body right now, but he's also very conscious of his hips because that helps control his leverage a little bit.
It is. It looks like he was trying to get an arm lock there with his hips, but didn't have much luck.
You see Stebbins trying to fight out of that bottom position.
Looks like he's mounted now.
And Stebbins wanting to get back to more in control of this bout. David Mason trying to strike with the left hand. What's Stebbins' objective right now?
You can see that he's trying to climb onto the back, but he's in sort of a wrestler's leg ride there at that point, and now it looks like he's got a choke in, so see if he has any luck. He doesn't really have position to get the leverage for that choke.
Mason still trying to come around in the top position. The glancing body blows, they do damage?
Not really. He can wear him down over time with them, but mostly he's just showing some action so that they don't stand him back up.
Now the scoring. This is a 10-point must system. Explain the scoring.
Well, the scoring evolved from boxing, and basically a 10 points must means that each of the three judges must give one of the fighters 10 points for the round. He'll give the other fighter 9 if it's a slight advantage, or 8 if it's less, and 7 if he's totally dominating the fight. And when you get much beyond that, they probably will have stopped it. Now you can see me there holding the ring to keep his head out. That's one of the things about a ring. It's not really designed for this type of fighting.
This fighting can take place on a mat, like a wrestling mat, in a boxing ring, or in a cage. And there's actually some safety elements inside the cage.
That's true. One of the big misconceptions around the Army is why you would have a ring or a cage. The cage is actually a much safer venue to go with, and we'll probably be going with those in the future.
So Sean Stebbins, who found himself in the bottom position throughout much of this first period, now is in the top position. Although Mason says not for long, because he comes out the backside.
I think he's working around in the side control position well. There's a pretty good scramble. Both of these soldiers know what they're doing.
Combatants with a wrestling background are not that accustomed to striking. They need to learn that.
And it puts a whole new spin on things whenever you can start punching the person in the face.
So David Mason has that front headlock. I wouldn't, again, call it dominance, but I would call it control, Matt.
The thing about control is it only matters if you can do something with it. So right now, there's not really any damage going on either fighter. So even though he's on top and he has the headlock, he's not doing anything with it.
Again, this is championship bantamweight competition for the gold medal. 3 5-minute rounds, correct?
That's correct.
Unless the bout stops prior to the conclusion of those 3 rounds.
It can finish at any time by choke, or by arm lock, or submission hold. The referee also has the power to stop it, as does the ringside doctor and the corners.
David Mason back in on the top position right now on Sean Stebbins.
Those knees to the body are pretty good.
Stebbins from the Minnesota National Guard. Mason, 3 Corps in Fort Hood, Texas.
These are 2 of the top programs around the Army. Surprisingly, the National Guard has some very, very good teams.
And so this round comes to a close. Kind of quick if you're inside. Maybe not quite so fast if you're watching it out in row 1 or row 2 of the bleachers. So they will return to their corners. They're going to get some guidance from their coaches. What do you think is being said right now?
Well, mostly I try to tell my fighters that they're losing so I can get them back in there and get them motivated. You know, if you give them too much advice, they don't hear you anyway because they're in the middle of a fight.
And Sean Stebbins, his coach.
Well, this is an interesting thing. That's Greg Nelson coaching him. He's one of the top coaches in the mixed martial arts world. He's actually coach of several Ultimate Fighting Championship champions, such as Brock Lesnar and whatnot. And you can tell if what he's telling him there is some simple advice.
Shrimp to the guard. Explain that. That's what he said.
Well, that means he needs to move his hips in order to put him in a good defensive position. I'm sure it'll come up again, so.
Well, here we go, round number 2. Sean Stebbins in the blue, and again, grappling as they are, they go very, very quick to infighting, close combat. Mason, again, has the leg of the tilt back of the shoulders. No points awarded for that.
Well, that's correct. And the points are the judge's opinion of how things are going on. One of the things we tell the fighters, if you don't knock the guy out or submit him, you really left it to somebody's opinion of who won. So this is what we were talking about, the guard earlier. Now Stebbins has placed Mason inside of his guard. That's how his legs are locked around the waist. And it's not a winning position, but it's a good defensive position.
Good defensive position, correct. Close combat, as this mirrors combat readiness. You don't get timeouts in combat. You don't stop the combat to get a drink of water. It continues because, again, this mirrors what these soldiers may see in combat.
And that's the biggest difference between what's going on here and other events similar to this you may have seen. Is that for these soldiers, this is the training. The what happens in the ring, it's not really the end. They're both actually training for the battlefield. You know, many of the fighters, in fact, most of the people in this tournament have been in actual hand-to-hand combat downrange, and that's the real point where lives are at stake. A pretty good shot there.
It is a good shot. Now, if you're Stebbins, you're on the bottom right now. You're his coach. What would you be trying to tell your combatant?
Well, I think he's working his guard up really high to involve the shoulder girdle. Normally, when I'm coaching somebody, I would tell him to get out from under him. You know, it may be fine in many sorts of contests to be down there messing around, but at the end of the day, when you're on the bottom, you're losing.
So you'd probably tell him to get that escape if he could, come out from that bottom position.
It looks like he's working on an arm lock here, but I don't think he's got it.
Get some sort of reversal or come back to your feet, one of the two. And that crowd around the ring right now starts to get into this just a little bit.
And the crowd is mostly soldiers, and soldiers these days pretty much know about fighting, so you have a very educated crowd here. Oh, it looks like he has a triangle choke. I can't see if he's got the arm on the far side. No, it doesn't look like it.
And the triangle choke, explain that, just what you're seeing right there, pretty much.
It is, except for he would have to have one of the arms in, and he doesn't, so both of Mason's arms are down below, which means there's not going to be a choke,
so
at least that choke.
If you're judging this, Matt, would this be a difficult bout in which to judge?
I think so far it's pretty much Mason dominating. He's been on top the whole way. He's been the one landing most of the punches. At least that's the way I see it.
You're talking about a 10-point must bout, so the winner of the round
would it get 10?
Would get 10. And right now it'd probably be a 10-9.
Probably the first round would have gone 10-9 to Mason if I was judging. And it's hard to second-guess judges. They each have their opinion, and they're, you know, some of the more experienced people in the Army, so they have pretty good opinions.
3 judges, as we said, each at a different side on the ring, so that they can all have different perspectives and looks on the competition.
Yeah, just as you see from the camera, it's hard to tell what's going on from the other side of the ring sometimes.
Mason smothering Stebbins very, very much. And as they slide under the ropes, they're brought back to the center of the ring.
That's right. It's also much different to be ringside or in the arena. Sometimes when you're in there, you can feel the damage that blows are landing better than they look when you're seeing them on TV. So the judges have a much better vantage point. In fact, the only person with a better vantage point is the referee.
Again, 3 5-minute rounds. So tell me, what role does conditioning play in this?
Well, there's probably nothing harder in the world than going against somebody who's also trying to beat you up. And we, on purpose in our competitions, have various time limits. In the preliminary rounds, they have 1 5-minute round. But in the semifinals, it's 1 10-minute round. So you can imagine, how long is it to be in there fighting for 10 minutes? And that's because they take different kinds of conditioning. We don't want our fighters spending their training energy prepping for the contest. The contest is there to prep you for war.
Well, right now, David Mason feels very much like he's in the midst of a battle as he tries to land those striking blows. No damage, though.
Yeah, very little damage going here. The defense is pretty solid. He's actually getting some good submission attempts in.
He did land a glancing blow off the side of the face, though.
It's a pretty good knee to the back there a second ago.
And there was the bell to end the second round. So they'll come back to the corners, get more guidance from their coaches. The time in the corners, 60 seconds.
I think if I was Stebbins' coach, I'd be telling him to keep his distance, stay up, throw punches. Let's see what he's saying there. It looks like he's giving him all advice on the ground.
Yeah, he's telling him to open his guard right now, Matt. He's saying bring your guard up.
I think he's telling him to walk it up towards his shoulders. Every time he gets his legs open to try submissions, it seems Mason has a chance to get through it.
He's also saying to control the elbow. So that's got an importance, too, of where the elbow, we talked about the hips, but where the elbow is in relation to your body also will expose you.
And when you're the man on the top inside the guard, one of the things you do is use your elbows to control the guy in the bottom's hips.
And so as we get set for round 3, you see them tap the gloves. Again, a boxing technique that many boxers use prior to the start of a particular round.
Well, one thing to remember is that even though we're talking about teams and competition, these men all know they're on the same team. You know, that everybody here is a soldier, and they're really in this helping each other.
Well, it's one army and it's one fight, but the combative tendencies that they need in battle, that they need in combat, are honed with the Army Combatives program and in competitions like this.
It's really true, too, that the values that it takes to become a good fighter are the things it takes to become a good soldier. You'll see at the end of the day, they'll hug each other. Well, they both know that really, in this tournament, it doesn't matter who wins. It really matters that both of these men are better trained at the end of it.
David Mason has the head buried right now. Sean Stebbins has the body lock, the front body lock, if you will, and tries to land this glancing left-hand blows.
He was trying to escape that leg, but Mason has it wrapped up pretty good.
That he does.
And look, he's almost got a reverse triangle choke on him here. Let's see if he's able to finish it off. It depends on where that bottom arm is.
Now, if he's able to tighten that grip, you could possibly see David Mason in a situation where he'd say, that's enough.
That's right. I'm not sure where his arm is, but to be effective, the choke has to cut off the blood supply to his head. So it's very nuanced once you get in there.
And again, those gentlemen you see on the side, they're there for safety purposes.
Yeah, you can tell they're pushing on the rope. They're just trying to keep him inside the ring.
And out from underneath comes David Mason. Stebbins lifted somewhat off the mat, but he's really hanging on for all it's worth, is he not?
Well, he's got that choke, and he thinks he may be able to finish it. And, it's of note that he probably lost the first 2 rounds, so he really wants a submission if he can get it.
You've got to go for that dramatic finish if you think in your mind that somehow, some way, you might even be behind. Well, we don't know what those judges have scored.
You can see they're out under the ropes now. But the referee doesn't really want to stop it so long as it's safe.
And there you see the build-up mat from the side of the ring. In boxing rings, it just drops straight to the floor. But there you see the built-up platform adjacent to the ring itself. As they slide back under the rope right now, the bottom rope in this boxing ring.
Yeah, the referee doesn't really want to stop it because that choke is maybe there. And if he stopped it, it might change the fight.
It's imminent, isn't it? I mean, this bout has the potential to end, and the referee doesn't want to take that out. Now
That's
David
right.
Mason.
It's like he's out now. I bet he was stopping for too long.
David
Yeah,
Mason
there we
trying to
go.
help push him out. And you can hit with the fist, the elbow.
No elbow strikes
No
in,
elbows.
in this competition. And the reason is elbow strikes mostly just give cuts, and we have to be a little bit more protective with our soldiers. Last year's tournament, the 101st Airborne team fought on Sunday and deployed to Iraq on Monday. So at the end of the day, we have to be a little bit more protective, keeping our soldiers safe.
You'd have to say they came out of the competition a year ago, went back to Fort Campbell, got on that airplane and were combat ready.
That's right.
David Mason, as they came back to the center of the circle of the ring. David Mason, again, in the top position now. And Stebbins, throughout much of this bout, all three periods, has really tried to fight from the bottom position.
Well, I think it's been forced on him. Mason is seemed to be the superior wrestler, and he's managed to be in top position most of the fight, and he hasn't done a whole lot of damage with it. So winning, but not dominating. Yeah, Stebbins better get busy. If he's going to win, he's going to have to pull off a submission or something soon.
But credit Mason, he's keeping it close. He's actually taking the advantage away from Stebbins.
Yeah, I think Mason, he's controlling the fight. He's only been in danger just at one time with that reverse triangle choke, and he's been controlling pretty much the whole way.
Stebbins trying to get some body blows in. But again, no harm right now to David Mason.
I think Mason knows he's in the lead. He's still trying to pass.
He's in control, doesn't want to do anything silly right now, Matt. Endanger himself.
He's trying to climb up the leg so he can get in a better position. But he knows the fight's almost over.
Well, we talked about it at the beginning. A couple of wrestlers, they've been going at it throughout on the mat through the vast majority of this bout as round number 3 comes to a close. Both combatants will return to their corners while the judges add up their scorecards.
I think Van, that there's really no doubt that Mason probably won the fight. He was on top most of the fight. He was in danger just a little, but at the end, he probably landed most of the blows, got the takedowns, dominated positionally. I would suspect he'll be the winner.
Well, Matt Larson, you're the director of the Army Combatives Program. Let's see what kind of eye you have right now. As they come to the center of the ring, we're waiting for the decision.
The winner by split decision. In the blue.
And they've got Sean Stebbins' hand up in the air. You said you thought it might be
in the
red.
Corner. Third corner.
And they're going to make the correction. They read it wrong. And they're going to award the bout to David Mason, the bantamweight champion.
Yeah, I think the announcer just got a little ahead of himself. Maybe announced second place first.
And that happens sometimes. But the important thing is it's on the scorecards. You read those scorecards and you award the bout to the proper winner. So it was a pretty good bout between two combatants, both former wrestlers.
Yeah, I think you saw it was grappling most of the way, and the person who dominated the position was the winner in the end. And that's an important thing to remember. Wrestling is a game of position, which is very important in fighting. Of course, it doesn't give you the skills to submit, so you can see wrestlers sometimes have to play catch-up and learn those skills.
Well, they fought with their mind as well as their body. Well, let's hear from our winner.
So, how does it feel to be a champion?
Feels good. I cut a lot of weight. It feels good when it pays off.
What was your strategy coming in?
I'm a wrestler. That's what I do, so that's what I wanted to do. And I came out here, threw a couple through my hands, then took them down.
All right, you got any shout-outs for anybody?
Yeah, I'd like to thank my team, my coaches, my family, everybody who's been a part of my life, my entire life.
All right, thank you. Congratulations. Back to you.
Let's hear it once again for bantamweight champion from 3-Corps, David Mason.
Matt, tell me, why is this competition so important to the Army Combatives program?
Well, the difference between this and other competitions is that this is actually just training. The purpose of the Combatives program or the Combatives competitions is to spur people on to train their hardest. And remember, these aren't the real fights. The real fights happen downrange in Iraq and Afghanistan and wherever soldiers find themselves in conflict. So that's what's really important, pushing people to be their very best.
Training for real combat. Thanks, Matt. Congratulations to our winner, David Mason from 3-Corps in Fort Hood, Texas, in the bantamweight division. For Matt Larson and myself, this is Close Combat.
Here we go!